Thanks, that was awesome. Hello, friends. How's it going? A little bit of warning, I am a fast talker. So I made this talk for tech, and I also made it for people who are non-tech. If you're a non-tech and I start getting a little technical, just go limp for a little bit. I'll get back to it. But I plan to go fast, and it's going to be kind of furious and exciting. The core premise is building a startup is hard. If it feels hard, you're not alone. It sucks sometimes, but it's exciting. The goals of these talks, I'm going to get into a few, but part of it is to reduce your pain over the next 12 months if you're starting to hit traction. I really don't want you to go through the same shit I went through at Pinterest to get the site up. It was exciting, but I've got a lot of gray hairs. You can see them in here if you come up closer after the talk. So what we're going to do is we're going to create a mythical company, and we're going to look at how it scales over time, looking at major inflection points. I'm going to give you a lot of technical recipes for how to actually build this so that you can just use the recipe. There are many ways to do this, but you can use this recipe. But I'm also going to give you strategies on how to think about tech, because I feel like that's what's most lacking when you're kind of junior in your career, or you haven't been a founder, or you haven't developed from small to big. And we're also going to construct this entire tech stack right in front of you. It'll be like magic. Do I have the right slide in front of me? Now I do. OK. Which slide is in front of me? There we go. The focus is on engineering. I'm not going to focus on building the company. I'm not going to focus on HR and stuff like that. That's not my forte, and quite frankly, you don't want to hear about it from me. Is it still working? OK. It's also for those who have not experienced going from small to big. So there's a lot of people who've worked at big. There's a lot of people who worked at small. I want to give you that in-between step. The scope is going to go, we're going to go from idea to about where you would be if you had 100 employees. I don't go beyond that because that's a whole separate talk, and I only have so much time here. Every startup is different. This is going to focus a little more on a social media company, but a lot of things are actually similar, and it's those similarities that I want to talk about the most. There's a lot in this talk. I'm going to put these slides up. I don't know where yet, but we'll figure it out. So I try to put a lot of detail in the slides that you can refer to when you need them. And then also, I'm not paid by any vendors, even though it might sound like it. I'm really not. I just get really excited, and I try to give you guidance. I say, just use this. Don't be stupid, like I was. So here are the inflection points. I put up a graph of Instagram to kind of give some guidance on what a lot of companies look like when they start to grow. What we have is the beginning. You have a couple founders developing an idea. They don't even know what they're going to make. They just have an idea. Then they launch. Nobody comes. Oh. Then suddenly something happens. They hit traction. And then from there on, you go and you become a massive business. It's these phases that I'm going to focus on the most, the early phases. So let's make a fictional startup. There's an idea bubbling around in our heads. We don't know what it is, but basically, you got your founder. You are the founders. You're sitting around. You're probably in class, and you probably should be paying attention to your marketing teacher, but you're not because you're doodling. And you have an idea. It's sort of bubbling in there, just brand new. This is how a lot of companies start. So Reddit, this is, if you saw Alexis Ohanian's talk, he was doodling the Reddit alien when he should have been paying attention to marketing class. Although maybe his professor should have been paying attention to him, I don't know. But either way, this is how it starts. You have an idea, kind of a name, you kind of mess around with it, and eventually it becomes the big thing. My brother draws a comic called Saturday Morning Breakfast Cereal, and this is what he was doing when he should have been paying attention in calculus class. Although, again, I don't think he should have been. He's much better at this. And then it eventually formed into a big comic that a lot of people know about. And you see this is and it's an evolution. Facebook started this way too. This was Facebook when it began. I don't know what software this is. I think it looks like a Wikimedia kind of piece of software. But it starts that way. It starts with just an idea, and you start to pull it together so you can prove out the idea. And that's what we're going to do in this talk. And then it evolves into what it becomes later. And that's when you start to have to build a giant team to build something great. So here's the idea for our startup. Bear with me on this. It's a social network. There's topics organized by community. You can send messages. They can only be 140 characters. They are deleted in 10 seconds, and you can pin your interests, and you can order a taxi from the app. Wow. It's called Snap and Uber Tweety Snoo. But I know all of you have experienced this because when I went to go register Snap and Uber Tweety Snoo, that was taken. Damn it. So, OK, so what do you do after that? You do the classic thing where you settle on some name. So I settled on Salad Rabbit. And why? Because Salad Rabbit was the least bad idea I could come up with, where I could still get the URL. So then you have to make the logo before you actually make the site. So I made the logo before I actually made the site. That's what's fun. This is a terrible logo, but anyway. You start looking at it a little bit. So now we are at day -90. We are starting to progress up toward day 0, which will be launch. Day -90 is when you're starting to do a little bit more with it. You're starting to look around. Hey, does anybody already have this idea? And if they do, can I do it better? Don't ever let that make you scared if someone is already doing this. You are starting to mock up a little bit. Maybe you have Photoshop, or maybe you're starting to pull together a website. You're doing a little bit of the digging, a little bit more. And then you work toward a demo. So that took you, say, 2 months or something. You are trying to get to a spot where you can prove if it actually is useful to somebody. So after a lot of ramen, you slap together an iPhone app, and you have a couple servers. Your friends and your family are looking at it. Maybe you get a little bit of YC money or 500 money. And then you also set up Google Analytics, and you are hitting and maybe sending out a few push notifications. You got kind of a complete app going. And this is exactly what you should be doing. You should show it around to your family and friends, and then launch day finally comes. And this is always exciting, sort of. You launch it. You see it on the App Store. Holy shit, that's my app. It's on the App Store. And then you sit there refreshing Google Analytics over and over and over again, and nobody's coming. There's a few. Crap. What should we do? And so then for the next long time, maybe, there's a trickle of people coming. You don't know what's going on. What should you do? So you keep developing the idea. Maybe you fiddle with it a little bit. Maybe you even start to develop the tech stack a little bit, mature it a little bit, because what the hell, you can't do anything else. You're adding a few features, getting sick off of ramen. And there are a few people coming, maybe. So this is the story. We're going to hit traction. There's a few people coming. And what's nice about those people is they love you in a way that's unhealthy. I don't know what's going on with those people, but they love you. So the question, though, is anything going to happen? Is this thing working? Should I pivot? I don't know. That is literally the billion-dollar question. It's kind of scary. And I'll show you why that's a billion-dollar question. This is Pinterest growth. From March 2010, when we launched, to Jan 2011, we didn't know if anything was actually happening. Ben, the founder at the time, said that we were in stealth mode, but not because we wanted to be. And that's the billion-dollar question. 8 months is a long fucking time to be sitting there wondering what the hell's going on. So imagine at month 8 if we had decided to pivot wildly. And now, Pinterest is much bigger. So I can't imagine how many times this happens, but it's hard. I can't give you any advice on it. You kind of have to go with your gut and hope for the best. But do know sometimes it takes some time. So you're not really sure what's going on, but something has started to happen. We're on day 120. There's people coming. What the hell? Did something happen? Maybe it's because we were featured on Apple's new, salad-related, name-related title, feature store. That's great. Or maybe it's because I hacked into the Jumbotron illegally and got a lot of people at the Super Bowl. That's exciting. Hopefully, this is not a fluke, because oftentimes it is a fluke. And that's the scariest thing, is when you get featured somewhere, you don't know what will happen, and then 3 days later, it comes back down. I've had that happen to me many times. But something happened. The users are still coming. We're at day 140. Users keep pouring in. Something's good. Maybe something caught on. Maybe it's spreading. Maybe we've hit traction. And so now, as a founder, what you're doing is you're beginning the nightmare. It's a good problem to have, but it's still a problem. You are running out to VCs while maybe you're developing on the side. You're trying to hire engineers, but nobody wants to join your startup, or at least no senior people want to do, so you end up with a couple hackers. And because you end up with a couple hackers, and I love hackers, but oftentimes they do some interesting things, such as going toward any shiny new tech. I'm included in that. I love shiny new things. But it's a problem, and I'll talk about that. Now your tech has become this confusing blob of just a mess. It's all these different technologies. They're wired together, and you are going to run into a wall soon. And I know because that happened at Pinterest. And now you've gotten to a certain number of people. Your site is timing out consistently. So what do? This is going to be a shitty next 18 months, guaranteed. Except that hopefully I can help you. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to back it up in time, and we're going to replay this startup, except I'm going to start to build you a recipe, a tech stack, and a way of thinking so that you can do this better than I did. OK, so we'll go back to day -90. The founders starting to flesh out their idea. Their goal, above everything else, is to build a minimal viable product. And I'm really rigorous when I talk about this thing. You should look up on Wikipedia. It's got a very good definition. A minimal viable product is different from a POC or something else. You are building something to prove out a hypothesis, and you are also building something that you can build off of. It's not a piece to throw away. If you got an idea, go for the gold on this. The hypothesis should be for this is, do people give a shit about what I'm building? So you're going to build to that point as fast as possible without building something that just has to be thrown away. You should be maximizing for velocity, agility, and creativity. Engineers love to pre-optimize. Don't let them do it. If you're an engineer, don't do it. Try to remember that what you're doing at this stage is you need to be able to try new ideas quickly. You need to be able to evolve your site. If someone gives you an idea that you love, put it on the site. You don't want to have to deal with untangling optimizations. So this is going to be the theme for a while. Choose one platform unless you really need more than one. This is, again, you want to optimize for velocity. You don't want to have to make your change on every damn platform. For this, we're going to use iPhone. You'll probably need a back-end place to store data, so we're going to get into that too. So this is a place where you're going to store user data. You're going to store their comments, whatever your stuff you want to store about them. And again, this is a place where people go crazy. They pre-optimize and they go nuts. Again, optimize for velocity, agility, and creativity, and I'll get into that. And we also want a backend that we can begin to evolve, not just with the number of users, because you have to scale as your users keep pouring in and putting more pressure on your database, but with your number of employees. You need to build a tech stack so that you can hire and hire and hire, and everybody can be productive. So let's construct a recipe. I'm going to begin, but I'm going to start real quick at telling you about one theme that I'm going to be harping on that I think a lot of people miss. This is about tech maturity. And the reason I'm going to tell you about tech maturity is because this is something that can help guide all of your decisions for the rest of time. There's a train right there. Can everybody hear me? Okay, well, okay. Look at the screen. There are tons of tech choices out there, and this is why you need a strategy. There's Postgres and Redis and Cassandra and HBase and Ryak and Neo4j and CouchDB and Membase and MySQL and MongoDB and VoltDB and about 100 others. So which should you choose? I don't know, and I chose a lot of bad ones. I'll tell you, this will help you a little bit, though. This is something I heard actually 2 years ago. I was starting to ask the question, why do people use immature tech at a startup? So I don't remember who it was. Maybe someone in the audience can tell me, because it's a great quote. They said, we're building the latest and greatest. I need the latest and greatest. No, 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 no. Incorrect. Unless you are building a time machine and you need a flex capacitor, you are probably building something that is amazing, but mundane from a technical standpoint, and you should realize that. And plus, just to let you know, flex capacitors don't always work well, and when they don't work well, you're in deep shit. So just keep that in mind. Another reason I've heard, this tech magically scales with you. So like Cassandra, HBase, things like that, until it doesn't, and that will happen to you. And then the other one I've heard is, it's shiny and new. It's got to be faster and better. Stop. No, incorrect also. I don't know how many people have told me Java is slow. It is bullshit. Let's keep going. So here's what I made a little equation. This should help you out. Maturity, so the tech maturity of something is equal to the blood and sweat divided by its complexity. The blood and sweat is how much work has gone into it. You can think about like the internal combustion engine. It's not quite as sexy as the new fusion engines we have, but a lot of blood and sweat have gone into it. And then complexity, that's the other side of it. So if the system is super complex, it's got all sorts of magic clustering all over it, that's going to be a problem for maturity because it takes a lot longer to make that stuff work. So let's look at a couple of examples. Redis, if you haven't used Redis, it's a really nice caching engine. I like it a lot. It's fairly damn simple. The code's a little odd, but it's very simple. So the blood and sweat that have to go into it is not that much. There has been a lot of blood and sweat. Twitter, Pinterest, a lot of companies are starting to use it, and they contribute back to it. And the complexity is low, so this is good. Maturity, good. Good maturity. HBase. I love HBase. I've scaled on it, but I'm going to advise you not to use it early. You want to use it when you're ready for it. A lot of blood and sweat has gone into it. Big companies are using it, but the complexity is massive. So if you've ever studied how eventual consensus and all this stuff works, it is hard as hell in academia, much less to get it right in code. And when that breaks, you are screwed. And I've had a lot of tech like this, not HBase, but a lot of other tech that goes down catastrophically, amazingly, and you cannot bring it back up. MySQL is kind of a flip side, and this is going to become a theme. People say I have a romantic relationship with MySQL. The amount of blood and sweat that's gone into MySQL is about as big as it gets. Facebook, banks, all these major corporations have used it and used it heavily. Now Oracle owns it, and they put a lot of work into it. And the complexity is relatively low. We've been building these sort of things for 40 years. It's a relational database. Sometimes you do need to use immature tech. As you grow your company, MySQL doesn't solve all problems. But here's the reason you have to be wary of it. It is harder to hire for it. I can go out on the streets of San Francisco right now and say, is there a MySQL developer? And someone will raise their hand. You're not going to get that for some of the other tech. It's harder to get help online. The reason you know that a tech is really mature and a good one to use is you can go Google for MySQL and primary key collision. Okay? And someone on Stock Exchange will not only give you the answer, but they'll also call you a noob. So that is a great sign that you found something that's very mature. Stability and performance are uncertain with a lot of immature tech. You don't know how it's going to go. And what you want more than anything else is predictability. Debugging will be harder because people haven't treaded this water. The tools are weaker, not as much nice profiling and all that good stuff. And so these are the dragons that you are going to be faced with. It's better not to face those in the early days of your startup. If you are also the biggest user, as you hit that traction, if you're the biggest user of one of these pieces of technology, it's this magic jump in difficulty in using it. It is much, much harder because nobody has treaded the water you are now treading. So most likely, you will not need immature tech for a good long time. Just think of it that way. OK, so now let's continue the recipe now that you have this maturity model. I'm going to give you a couple things you can just use, and I just recommend using them. AWS, just use it. Now, actually, as I've been making these slides, GCP is really starting to become an amazing thing. So I've been looking at that, and they're offering a lot of credits. I'm going to give this talk on AWS, but I think that there's a really good parallel on GCP. Google Cloud Platform, sorry. So Amazon Web Services is a system of cloud services that include all these magical things that you can use to build your startup, but they also include a Linux box if you just want a Linux box. The nice thing about AWS is it will grow from you from the tiniest day one up until massive. I mean, major companies, Netflix, Pinterest, other companies are using this at about some of the biggest scales that are seen. It's competitively priced. Don't let anybody else tell you otherwise. This is one of the keys. You're building a startup. You don't have a lot of time to build all these little things. So AWS gives you a lot of nice tools. You've got DBs, you've got caching, search engine, email, DNS. They won't grow with you forever, but they can buy you a lot of time. And they're great for optimizing your velocity, agility, and creativity, especially in the early days. Use Route 53. Route 53 is a DNS system that Amazon offers, and that's what we're going to register saladrabbit.com with. So use that to register your domain. This gets a little bit more complicated quickly. This is something you can refer to the slides later. But spin up an EC2 instance. EC2 is all the little Linux boxes. So we're going to spin up a small one so that we can run our first backend service to supply data out to our iPhone app. A little bit of details for you, especially for the tech nerds out there. This box is going to be what describes our interfaces and things like that. So for instance, get a comment or register a user. This is going to be your first connection between the iPhone and your backend. Use the latest Ubuntu, just works great. Don't ask questions. Nginx is really fantastic for serving your HTTP. It can host your Python, all that other stuff. Just use Nginx. It works really well, very mature product. This is sort of a little religious debate. I think both work. You can use, I really advise people to just use Python. The thing that people say about Python that's bullshit is they say it can't scale. Total bullshit. It can scale. It doesn't have a compiler, so it's a little slower. But don't worry about that problem until you are a billion-dollar business or more. Python works at employee scale, and that's what you should be optimizing for. You can hire a bunch of employees. If someone doesn't know Python, they can learn it in a week. You could use Flask and PyMySQL to connect out to MySQL and whatever else you use, or Django works really well too. Use Route 53 internally to connect your tiny instances around. And so for instance, we're going to make api.saladrabbit.com because we need a place for the iPhone to connect. You don't want it to be main.saladrabbit.com. You want that to be maybe your marketing material. And then here's another little tip. EBS is network attached storage, And this is a really good thing to use because it will do all the mirroring for you. And if the box goes down, it's stored in a really safe spot, and you can spin it up on another box. So what you're getting out of that is you're getting easy backups. Turn on the backups, though. OK, good. Do it. Do it. Call it something not clever. Call it API 001. Don't call it Darth Vader or something. I've seen that too many times. Please. OK, so now that's going to serve our dynamic content. But you may also have a bunch of static content, logos or images or whatever else, maybe stuff that your users generate. You're going to store that in S3. S3 is like a Dropbox, where you put files into something and then you can retrieve them. That's a strange thing to say because Dropbox was built on S3, but you get the idea. That's where we're going to store JavaScript, CSS, images, all these kinds of things. The thing about S3 is it's super durable. I mean, it's like 13 nines of durability. If you put a file in here, it ain't going away, unless you're Dropbox and you've got bajillions of files. It's very available storage, so that's great. You don't have to worry about it. That's the key. Use Route 53. You're going to connect assets.saladrabbit.com. There's a little bit more in the weeds. Connect that to your S3 bucket and things like that. We're not going to worry about CDNs and other things right now. You're trying to make a demo. Use GitHub to store your code. You get a couple of nice things. You get code backup for free. It's great for working between your employees. Just use it. Don't ask questions. It's also good for a little bit more of your employee interaction. Code reviews, bug reporting, some of this stuff is built in. It also makes deployments easier. So what you're going to do is the easiest, quickest ways to get up and running is you've got your production machines, the api.saladrabbit.com. All you have to do is write a little script to SSH into them, do a git pull, kill the Python processes, and now you have deployment at small scale deployment. It works really well. So here's our picture. We have our iPhone app. It's connecting to an API box to get some dynamic content. Probably you're making a bullshit data, so you've got a couple of things just to show what the iPhone app might look like. So you might just be saying, sending up some canned content, right? And you've got an S3 bucket for storing assets. What we don't yet have is that dynamic database. So I'm going to show you a little bit about that now. We need a place to store user info, comments, whatever kinds of things that you have that you might generate, your users might generate. So we need a database. Here's my little overarching theme again, is just use MySQL. I know there's all these cool things out there. I know they're exciting, but don't use them. Maybe Postgres, fine. Postgres or MySQL. But I just want to make this on a t-shirt. Just use MySQL. The boring tech revolution is here. Don't use the sexy shit, please. There's a really great system that AWS supplies. GCP also has a version of this. It's a management for MySQL. So this is really handy because, again, you don't want to deal with managing MySQL. You want to be working on your product. So use RDS. Your engineer will know what to do. What RDS does for you is it conveniently manages your MySQL instances. It costs about 1.5x of MySQL, but you don't have to hire an engineer for it. And then the nice thing is you can transition out of RDS into a MySQL box that you self-manage when the day comes that you want to get out of RDS. You don't have to worry about operations in those early days, which is awesome. No configs to understand. Come on. Backup's done for you, and no messing around with failovers. Excellent. That will save you a boatload of time. Don't be afraid of joins, distincts, and counts, and all this other stuff. This might scare some of you who have gone through scale, but again, velocity, agility, and creativity. Use whatever you've got to do to show some cool stuff to on your demo. So now we have RDS for storing our data. OK, so how does your API box connect to your RDS endpoint? So how do you actually make this arrow? In the early days, just put that data into Python. You don't need fancy stuff. Don't use Zookeeper yet. Don't use any of this stuff. Just put it into Python, maybe a config file. Make your backups, your backend easy to debug. I don't know how many people forget this step. Just make it easy to get errors out to you, because otherwise you are not going to be able to debug very easily. So to do that, here's the recipe I use. Use Python, write to syslog. AWS CloudWatch and these other tools will help you aggregate all those syslogs, and then you're going to be a lot happier. Just do it. Don't ask questions on that one either. Search. If you need search, you just use AWS Cloud Search. It will work in the early days for you just fine. That's probably it. So you don't need to do early things in these early days unless you need them to prove out your actual product. You don't need to send notifications because you don't need to remind mom to look at your app. You don't need to send out emails. You don't need anything else that's not vital to your demo. So don't do it yet. Don't optimize for anything on your backend unless you have to. OK, so here's the big picture to just sum it up. We have an app. It's working. The architecture doesn't limit your velocity, agility, and creativity. That picture I showed you will basically work for almost any startup. It won't scale very far, but we can evolve it and grow it, and that's key. And now go show people. That's your job. Go find people, show them to your friends, your family, our entrepreneur. Show it to people on the train until they get really irritated with you, like that might have happened to me. I don't know. Hopefully people will love it. That means you've got something, if they really love it. And if they don't, or they give you feedback, here's my suggestion. This works all the time. Just say thank you. Don't respond to the feedback. Say thank you, leave, and figure it out later. Just sort of take notes of it. It's a great way to hear their feedback and to not react to it. Oh, I said that. OK, good. And then we're going to get into the next phase, and this is prepping for true launch of your app. So your friends and family hopefully love it, and if they don't, maybe you love it. Prep for launch. So this is what we're going to focus on in these last critical days to launch. We're going to tighten up our front-end experience, because you want to go out onto the App Store with a beautiful experience. You don't have to go nuts, but try to make it at least good. Add asynchronous background processing. So this is things like, this is a good time to add in virality pieces. So sharing to Facebook, sharing by email. That's going to be key because you want people to download your app and then go out to their friends. So now's a good time to add that. There's a piece of tech you can use called PinLater if you want to do background task processing. That's just a little hint. So that's for if you're going to send emails in the background, just use PinLater. I'll send these slides again. For push notifications, you can just use SNS on AWS. For SMS, use Twilio. And for email, use SES. Done. Add Google Analytics to your front end so you actually know what's going on. Otherwise, you're flying blind for the most part. And then tell everybody. So you launch. This is day 0, launch, tell everybody, go on everything, every spot you have, and then sit there and hit Google Analytics over and over and over and over again. Actually, don't do that. That might kill you, but it's fun anyway. And then OK, now we're into trickle phase. So you've launched. Nobody's coming. But this gives you a little bit of time to develop both the stuff that nobody sees as well as the product. Again, we are not sacrificing on velocity, agility, or creativity yet. We'll get there. It always happens. So round out your product and your operations. Try to make it a little bit easier to spin up more machines and things like this. If necessary, add new platforms now. So iPhone, work on your Android app, because now you've got some time. This is a little hint I give people. If you haven't used this, just add StatsD in now. So StatsD is a place where you can hook in every spot in your architecture, your whole topology, and you can either count things or you can time things. And this is going to be critical when you get to traction, because the day we get to traction, we're going to want to know what is the most fucked. There it goes. So yes, add StatsD everywhere. So all API endpoints, all MySQL calls, all calls to other services. All background tasks everywhere. Make a dashboard. That also helps to keep a little bit of the high-level stuff that you care about. Make it faster to launch machines. This is something I wish I had done in the early days of Pinterest. We used to have what I called the Apollo 13 checklist, because what could go wrong? So you start to go down it, and you hope that you bring up a MySQL box, and there would always be something. It took an hour. It's better to do this up front, I feel now. So set up something like Puppet or Chef, or use AWS OpsWorks, which is a Chef-hosted system. And what that allows you to do is spin up boxes quickly. It'll save you a lot of hassle. Set up CloudWatch or Pingdom to know when your site is down. This is weird, but it will save you sleep if this thing wakes you up, because otherwise you'll do what we did, which is to wake up every hour, roll over in bed, and click refresh. Oh, good, the site loaded. Go back to bed. Add more API servers at this point. You know, if you can go from 1 to 2, that actually proves out a really nice piece of your architecture that you can add more, hopefully. So that forces you to start to round out your operations. AWS ELB is good for distributing load. Just use it. Works really well, especially at this scale. Make it fast to bring up an API server. And also set up stuff for your employees, because maybe now you have 5 or 6. You're starting to hire a little bit, because now you have funding. Maybe. Make Route 53 connections, so now we each have our own developer environment. You're working on the scale of employees. Make it easy to deploy new code to production. So now you've got 5 employees. You want to make it really easy to get that code up and to debug it and understand what's broken. Teletran's a really good deployment system. You can just use it. Go Google for it. And then so now we've got something more developed. We have an iPhone app talking to API and our logic servers on using Route 53 and ELB. We have a database with MySQL. We have static storage in S3. We have search and a few other things if you need them. We also have visibility into what we're building and what's broken. So we got Google Analytics so we can know how many people give a shit. We've got StatsD to know what's broken. We've got CloudWatch to know when our site's down. And we can deploy easier. This is good. You can almost build any startup to this point and be able to pivot at this point if you want to. So this still maximizes for your creativity. OK, so day 120 comes. Oh, shit, people are coming now. And then day 140 gets there. They're still coming. Now begins the fun. Winter is now here. I haven't actually watched that show. I'm embarrassed about that. But I hear that's the right analogy. So your site begins to time out. This will happen. Your queues start to back up. All sorts of bad shit happens. First thing, you've got StatsD, right? You did set that up, right? Profile first. It's probably, and I will bet money on it. Actually, I'm out of money, but OK. I'll bet money that it's probably your database first. It almost always is. So now this is the point, and nothing sooner, for where you're going to start to trade off agility and creativity and velocity. So far, we've always set up so that we can change shit on the screen. But the moment you start to optimize, optimization and scalability kind of pulls you away from that just naturally. It doesn't have to, but it usually does. So don't worry, we will get them back. But that's going to become the rest of your company's existence, is always trying to claw back to the original level of creativity you had in the beginning. If it is your database, I'm going to give you a little crash course on database. I'm running out of time, but let's see if we can do this. And again, you can refer to this later. Here's what you do. You start increasing your database size. Just do that. So you can go all the way up to SSDs. That will buy you a lot of time. Short down times on RDS are nice, so you can swap them out. RDS will manage all that for you. Begin to optimize and reduce the load on MySQL. So there's going to be a couple things. We're going to go through this really quickly. There's maybe not enough time. But start to look at slow logs. Start to do show full process list. This will show you your worst queries. There's a tool called InnoTop. Get it. InnoTop is like top for MySQL. It's excellent. Add indexes. So start to look at your data, how people are accessing it, and say, I should add an index in certain columns so that you go a little bit faster along those columns. This is a good time to do it. Start caching. We'll get into that a little bit. And start normalizing all your queries and remove all the nasty stuff I told you to add earlier. Joins, distincts. These things, naturally, MySQL hates them. So let's go into caching. This gets a little bit technical for a little bit. Afterward, I'll get back to non-tech a little bit. Create Memcache or Redis servers. Memcache is a really nice place for caching data. It just is. And use McRouter to manage all of those memcaches. Or you can use Elasticache, which manages it all for you, but yeah, you can kind of go either way there. The usual flow for anybody who's not set this stuff up is you check in your cache. If it's not in the cache for some piece of data like a user object, you then go to your database. If you find it in your database, you then will put it in Memcache and then serve it to the user. So this is the normal cache flow. Hunt for common queries you can cache. This can be done with InnoTop and other things, and in your code. If you're still growing, start to normalize your data. And I'll show you what this looks like. This is very counterintuitive, but it's really helpful. We're going to split the world into two universes in your database. There's object tables that store a piece, just an object of data. So this is things like you're a user. So it's going to be an ID to a blob of user data. They're nouns. Add a primary key to the ID. This is something you can use later, and an auto increment. And the reason you add an auto increment is now every time you add a user in, you get a unique ID for that user. And now it'll scale with you for the rest of time. And you need mapping tables. So we have tables that contain users, but we might need to look up something like give me all the comments for a user. So that's something like user set a comment. For this, also add a sequence ID. So you're going to have user ID, you're going to have comment ID, and you're going to have a sequence number, because this is helpful for later down the road when IDs may become more meaningless rather than incremental. Add indexes. Look at this later when you need it. Here's an example. This is going to get really technical for a second, but I want to show you why this is counterintuitive. This is why it's counterintuitive, but why it works amazingly well. So we might have a MySQL query for getting all of the text for a set of comments for a user. So you give me a user ID, I'm going to give you all their comments, right? So what I suggest you do is you're going to split this. You're going to do two steps now. One is give me a user ID, and then I will give you back comment IDs, and then take those comment IDs and turn them into the actual text. Two steps. Why? That's kind of weird. Well, the other query you might have commonly for your users is the same thing, but by listing, not by user. And we're going to split that again into, given a listing ID, I'm going to give you comment IDs, and then you're going to go get comment text. Well, look what I've done here. These two things are the same. You can cache them really well, and most likely other users are going to see those. So now we've just started to split the world, and we're able to cache it more effectively. I'm going to skip this. This is a good slide you can look at if you are doing feeds. So a lot of social networks have this, Twitter, Pinterest, Reddit, where you have a front page with a feed. I suggest you look at this. The moral of the whole story here is that it will be the first thing that probably breaks on you, because usually a feed is a joining of a lot of data, which is really hard on your system. Better just use what I call a push model, and the slides go into that. So moral of the story, just push data to buckets of data for your users. I'm running out of time here, so I'm going to pump a little bit. I was already pumping. This is getting a little insane. MySQL does not scale out of the box, so at some point you have to ask the question, when to shard? This will be a major scalability question for you because sharding is scary. You should not shard until you've increased to the max size box. When you've moved out tables, so move user tables, move comment tables, move them to other databases. If you're reading from read slaves, this is the first signal. If you are reading from read slaves, you need to be doing something now because you are in deep shit. So read slaves cause all sorts of problems. They can go down in weird ways. They can back up in weird ways. They can cause really weird bugs. So how to shard, I'm not going to go into this, but there is a talk you can look at. One talk I did is called Sharding Pinterest. It goes into detail about how to do this. And there's another good one from the Instagram folks on how they did sharding. So this is one to look up when you get to that exciting, scary day. Next thing, log everything. I'm going to go into a little bit of detail, but if you don't be afraid to log everything. Logging data, we're going to log data, and we're going to log from our operations. So log every single page if you can. It could be expensive, but if you can get there, it's going to be awesome for you. Log all major events. This is another kind of logging. Try to split the world into page views and then events. Events are exciting things that happen on your site, and they're going to become the crux for all of your eventual MapReduce, machine learning, and all this other stuff. And eventually log all your service calls too. It'll be helpful for understanding what's broken. So why do we do all of this? Because it will save your ass one day. At some point, you will break your database. I guarantee it. And if you have a log of all this stuff, you can get the data back. This will also begin to be the beginning of how we understand our users. This is the beginning of your entire business and how you are going to iterate on product. So a little bit more recipe for you. Use Kafka and Secor to log your data out. Look at this later if you need it. You can use EMR for doing MapReduce. MapReduce is how we do a lot of big data. So I've just given you a complete recipe for getting to big data quickly. You can schedule your big data queries with things like Pinball, SWF. Also, this is where things like Azkaban come into the right place. And another little hint I tell everybody is dump MySQL to S3 every night so you can use it in MapReduce. Again, this is stuff that will be exciting to you when you get there. Maybe some of you are already there. And then in the near future, start doing data science and A/B experiments. But not yet, don't do machine learning. You will hurt yourself if you do it now. So now, this is the last phase of this. We're going to get good at our business. So we've gotten past traction. I'm going to tell you a little bit about your business at that point. You want to get good at operations. You want to be able to spin up machines. You want the site to never go down. This is where we are. This is where a company should be after traction and after you have enough employees to solve this problem. You should have scale more under control. Scale not just on users, but employees. You should have data and metrics flowing in. You should have goals for your company. This is a much deeper thing, but these are the sort of things you should have at this stage. Your company is going to start growing. You're going to grow from 10 to 100, and always at 100, things start to suck. I don't know why that is, but they always suck at 100. And you probably have a foosball table because you're a startup. So that's exciting. This is going to become your mantra from the rest of the time. Remember how I said it was OK to lose velocity and agility and creativity? The rest of your company's life is going to be about clawing that back. We are going to build what's called the dream machine. The goal here is you want to build a whole system where you can build any idea that you have inside the company really fast, despite it being a massive company with lots of tooling. What you want to do is you want to hire a team, and you want to build a set of tech that help you build ideas faster and better than ever with each passing year. That's the goal of the dream machine. The tech, if you're doing this right, even drives creativity. It's sort of like when you sit down to Legos, the Legos drive the creativity. That analogy's been overused, but it works perfectly. We're going to start to regain our velocity, agility, and creativity. You've probably built up some tech debt. I'm going to go a little fast here because this is a little less interesting, but start to pay down that tech debt. Every company has it. These are some companies, and the name of their tech debt. You will have this. You will have the monolithic beast that you've got to get rid of. So begin to pay it down. Start to align your teams more towards success. There's a whole nother talk on this alone. So we could talk about that if you're interested afterward. And start to move to a service-oriented architecture. This is where you start to split your entire backend into pieces so that you can make a more employee scale. Engineering management, this is a challenge. I'm going to this just real quick because everybody screws this up. Do not promote your best engineer to manager. And the reason I put promote in quotes is because management should not be thought of as a promotion. It should be thought of as a lateral thing. You have managers, you have engineers. And if you could split the two, you stop the encouragement of your engineers becoming managers. Because most likely what you will do, and I did this too, is you will promote your best engineer into management. Now what you've done, you lost a great engineer, and you probably have a shitty manager. Yep, I said that. Do have discussions with the engineers about their careers. This will help guide them out of management if they're not that interested in it. And again, management should not be a promotion. It's very hard not to use that word, but that should be the truth. Give them equal impact to comp and give them equal access to impact and comp so that they will be motivated to do the right thing. Engineers who have never managed should not step in lightly. This is also another mistake. Give them a path to management success. So start to build them out, maybe like a 6-month plan. There's another person you're going to encounter. They're the technically strong jerk. I joke because this is not the actual term I use. I actually use the term technically strong asshole. But if I use that term, the TSA is going to get pissed off with me. This is a person who is a killer. They are 2x faster than all of your other engineers, but they're an asshole. So I will tell you why you should fire them really fast. It's really hard to do, and I've been there. It is really hard to fire this person, but they are going to drive everybody else nuts, and they will no longer be 1x engineer. They will be 0.5x engineer. And if you do the math, and I won't walk through this, but if you do the math, you can figure out how many engineers you need to hire before you should fire this guy. Just get rid of them. They suck. But it can be very, very hard. Here's another little cultural thing, if this works. It's not working. Come on. Yay. OK. Motivation. This is how to think about motivating your engineers. This is a little tidbit, and I think this is going to be about the end of the talk, so if anybody wants more about it, I can dig into it. Motivation, this is by a guy named Daniel Pink. This is a way to think about motivating your people. Look at it as autonomy, mastery, and purpose. And if you think along those lines, you will be able to build a really motivational company. So don't just give your engineers autonomy. That will be awesome for 3 days. They will all start going in different directions. Give them purpose. Give them a goal to go toward. And now you will have ultimate motivation. And then if you can layer on mastery, building the world's best X, Y, and Z, now you have every element you need to get them ultimately motivated. Tell you what, this talks about services. I go into detail. I'm going to skip past this because we're running out of time here. But this will teach you a little bit about what makes a good service, which should become the crux of your company. Also about a good service. Let's go past this because I want to get to one last point. How much time do I have before you kill me?
This is it.
This is it. Let's just jump through here. I want to show you the last slide because I think it's important. OK, so this is going to be a reference point that you can use. This is what you will become if you achieve services really well. You see, we still have our little API bits at the top, and we have S3. But then your entire company becomes individual teams. I call them one pizza teams because you kind of want 2 services per pizza team. I did the division for you. And then there's all these different services that do great things. And what you're seeing here is, as a product person, you want to build all these things to build product really rapidly. So if I want to build a messaging service, look what I've got here. I can send out emails. I can store stuff on the database. I've got it really well scaled. And I might even have things like push notifications so I can send it out to users. What you are doing is you are building a set of Legos by one set of teams. This is the platform team, so that your product teams can go really fast, using those Legos and rounding them out. This is what your goal should be for the rest of the time, building toward this. And this is also an org structure you can use. I split the line. The bottom half is platform. This is building really great platform teams who build all these great tools. On this side is front-end tools, so great animation libraries, things like this. On this side is back-end tools. And if you do that really well, your product people can be aligned along your strategic pillars, whatever those are: money, monetization, growth, all these other things, and they can go really fast as little miniature independent companies. And that's where you want to be. So to sum this all up, so we're able to, Salad Rabbit is now able to prototype and ship ideas great. We now have a high-functioning creative team that can focus on hard problems. We're able to experiment on massive audiences because we grew. We have a great audience. This is awesome. Keep going. Thing. We're now also hiring the best people in the world because we have a company that attracts great talent. And we're able to change the world for the better. And so I told you that the title of this whole talk was that everything's harder at scale. But I lied to you, because when you get up to this stage, it turns out that some amazing things happen with scale. You're able to change the world. That's it. Thank you.
All right. All right. Hey, Marty, if anyone has any questions, where can they get you with some questions?
I'm going to go down to the mentor tent. I'm just going to hang out. So come
Awesome.
on by. We'll talk tech.
Do you use the Reddit or the Twitters?
I use some of the Reddits and the Twitters and the emails. So I'll give you a card if you need the emails.
That's awesome. A round of applause again for Marty, guys. All right.